Yeah. Contract. It's really
They were trying to tell him pacemaker,
yeah.
but he don't. I'm like, well then don't go to the doctor and waste my inheritance if you're not going to what the doctor tells you.
Right.
But 40 beats a minute.
No, that sounds very
Not good.
Vacation.
Good, really good.
Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. The City of Hannibal official of public hearing, Tuesday, August 16th, 2022, 6:30 p.m. to Council Chambers of City Hall. I call this public hearing to order. Bianca Quinn, HPD Management Assistant, Finance Director, please step forward. The floor is yours.
So we are here for the purpose of fixing the 2022 ad valorem property tax rates for the city's general fund, police and fire retirement fund, and library fund. The assessed values that we received from Marion and Rawls County raised from roughly $249 million to $258 million. The state auditor's review of the submitted data determined that the 2022 tax rate ceiling for the city's taxing entities will remain unchanged at $1.1778 per $100 of assessed values for both.
Okay. Any questions regarding the presentation this evening? Council? Thank you very much. This time I'll open the floor to public comments.
The library board held its hearing on its ad valorem tax rate this evening, and they adopted the rate recommended by the state auditor. So they've already taken care of that. It's 0.2854. It's not changed.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments from the public at this time? Last chance. Okay, with no other comments, council, any other comments? Go ahead and adjourn this public hearing, and we'll have another starting at 6:45.
help.
Any idea what?
Is what I was told. I mean, I don't.
Right, to help. Yes,
Right.
yes. That's fine.
I think a lot's changed since then.
Like,
But once you get that set up, it's hard to get that back.
you know, he's got it. Yeah. Yeah. So he's got everything. He's got the website, he's got everything ready. So, you know, whatever.
All right, I'm used to being kicked around. That's the worst that happens to me. It is. Okay, 6:45. City of Hannibal official public hearing, Tuesday, August 16th, 2022, 6:45 PM, council chambers. I'd call this public hearing to order. Michael Murphy, building inspector, you're first up, and you have the floor, sir.
So this has to do with the rezone Cedar. They want to go from B multifamily. It was July 18th. Approved it. This it just kind of this zoning is better suited for what Chad's wants.
I have a few, Mike. You give us a brief description of the differences, two types of.
Basically, multifamily is just what it says. Multifamily, one and two family duplexes. The PR to the south, so it's a new zone. Basically, this will be two cities. So, but it includes the permitted uses are accessory buildings, detached single-family dwellings, duplex and triplex, attached dwellings, multifamily dwellings, rental apartments, condominiums, townhouses, and limited commercial. So it does allow for limited commercial use, basically just to and that's in line with kind of what Chad wants. Triplexes, basically everything is kind of what he's planning. So
Just out of the planning and zoning, it resulted from him having the inclusion of an office on the site with homes.
Remember last year we driving, but we mandated that new developments have sidewalks in them. Is that right?
yes, with our new subdivision, it was an ordinance form. So, and I would, this, I would say it would have to, I think this went into effect after, so this wouldn't be grandfathered or anything. This would still have to, the final plat would still have to be approved by planning and zoning, this development. So that's going to have to be included in that plat. So I have to have the sidewalks, or, if he does have a commercial space, he's going to have his concrete around it, asphalt spaces, just like.
Any other questions?
Is there any thought to the is it going to be a standard street width? Is this going to be an extended third lane possibly?
Again, and they that's all lined out in the subdivision, so you'll have to adhere to. Basically, he'll have to make the street city street. Can't remember.
32.
All right, so whatever the business
All the
residential
standards, it's gonna-
standard is
Yeah.
it's going to be, but not less. Okay. Okay, very good.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mike. This time, the floor is open to public comments regarding the rezoning of 100 Lone Cedar Drive. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, welcome to come forward. Absent anyone coming forward, I'll go ahead and adjourn this public hearing, and we'll, oh, I'm sorry. I'll back up. I better put my glasses up closer where I can see somebody waving at me. If you could state your name for us,
I'm
please.
Robert Reedmeyer. I live at 115 Coil.
Okay.
Lot is my backyard. What is going to be built there is to be cleaned up. Right now, it's quite a storage yard. Building business ends in. Needs things. What requirements there are to maintain brush like that in the air. See them. Did cut trees that I dearly liked, but they were on his lawn. Now he's burning up. I can quit working. Just the birds and just the shade. That's it. That was his privilege. We just would like to know what is going on there. When can we expect something to happen, and what will it be? As that information becomes available, like it shared with oil radiation.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's fair. Thank you much. Anyone else wishing to speak regarding the rezoning of 100 Lone Cedar Drive? With that, I'll go ahead and adjourn this public hearing, and the regularly scheduled council meeting will start at 7.
You know what I mean? He's got the equipment to pull it across.
He's talked about it.
Doesn't that say, I mean, you know, how much they put in, that say 50, 60.
Right. It's paid for. Yeah. Yeah, people all now it's 7. St. Colin. Good evening and welcome, everyone. This is the City of Hannibal Official Council Agenda, Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. Council Chambers, City Hall, 7 p.m. I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember McCoy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson.
Here.
Councilmember Franke. Mayor Hart.
Here.
Councilmembers Phillips.
Here.
Welch.
Here.
And Beach.
There being a quorum, I will call this meeting to order. Mayor Pro Tem Dobson, would you do the invocation, please?
Heavenly Father, in our hearts we plan our course, but we pray that you establish our steps. I pray that we seek you for advice. Let us not make decisions based upon what we know, but let us act based upon your wisdom. Please guide us, Lord. Place this meeting in your hands. We place our hearts and our minds in your hands so that you direct us. Amen.
Ask Director of Central Services, Andy Dorian, lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, council, just as a quick reminder, it's been requested due to the audio system that we have that when we speak, try to enunciate towards the microphone so that when it comes to doing the minutes, it's much easier. People doing the transcribing and stuff. Just a quick reminder, if you would, please. With that, I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as it's posted this Tuesday, August 16th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. Next, I need a motion to approve the payroll and accounts payable for the first half of August 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. Next item on the agenda is Mr. Brant Dooley with the Hannibal J.C.'s.
I'm here on behalf of the Hannibal J.C.'s to ask for a temporary street closure on Lion Street from the 3rd Street Viaduct to South Main from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
And it looks like having a car show there.
Yes.
All right. And there was a map included in the packet. Looks like the assistance you need barricades at the viaduct in South
Yep.
Main, which is very typical
Yeah.
type thing there. Just for council's information, there doesn't appear to be any issues or objections from the staff, and everything is in order as far as documents to carry this out. It's your pleasure.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is April Azate with 323 North Main. Is April here?
I'll make a motion to table the item.
So motion to table, is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next item on the agenda is Mr. Larry Markley, 3128 Renlin Avenue. Good evening, Mr. Markley.
Hello, Mayor, and all of you. I met some of you I haven't talked to on the phone. I have a terrible problem I'd like to have the council address, and the city council, and this affects me, and it not only affects me, but it affects the entire city. An incident that happened to my neighborhood, and because of that, I think it might require a little more time, and I would like your indulgence if that happens. I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a United States Air Force Vietnam vet, air traffic controller. I ran an airfield for the Department of the Army for 4 years. I was an FAA air traffic controller at Lambert Field, retired. I attended the University of Missouri. I have education and biology degrees, taught biology in high school. I was a real estate and broker in Hannibal for more than 20 years, licensed in Missouri, Illinois, and Iowa. Owned a camera shop and a gift shop. Owned 2 restaurants, including Bubba's on the waterfront. Everybody remembers that. Even owned a hot dog cart one time. Had 5 different businesses, all with business permits, every one. Now, I have a license to practice real estate in the state of Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois. That reflected that I also have a business permit in Hannibal. I've lived in 10 different states. I've lived in Hannibal since 1980. I came here because I thought it was a good place to live and establish a business, a real estate business. I have 2 sons, both Hannibal High School graduates, and also HLG graduates. They're both successful. I bought my present house in 1993 on Renlin Avenue, quiet street, about 3 football lengths long. That's all further is. There's a 2-way street coming off of Highway 61 and a 1-way street off the other end, Branham. Little quiet street, great neighborhood. Has a small church across the street from my house. And during the time I've lived there, it's had 2 congregations. One was the Living Water Church that was vacated about 4 years ago, and Light Ministries about 2 years ago. Both of them, I've talked to them, and they have no association with that church in any way, shape, or form. They're both closed. I have phone numbers for both of them, which is very easy to find on the internet. I'll come to that. In May, there was construction on that building, and I thought maybe a new church was coming. Been vacant for about 2 years. I thought, great. I'd like to see some people over there. But they did take good care of it. A man named Greg Sutton owns that property, and he's taken very good care of it. Cleans the yard up. After construction finished, and on June the 14th, there was a group of about 10 people gathered in the building. It looked kind of strange to me, so I entered the building and asked what was going on. The reply was there's an adult daycare was being established in that business, or in that building. And I said, are you affiliated with a church? And they said, no, we're a private-owned business. Now, this is in a 1 to 2 family zone, Ward 6. And the only thing allowed in there, basically, is a church. And this is not a church. It's just a building. I immediately contacted the building inspector, Mike Murphy, who informed me that he had not issued any permits for anything in there other than to turn on the electricity. Period. I informed him of the code violation. He replied the only one that could have approved it was the city manager. I immediately contacted the city manager's office, and the city manager replied to me by phone on June 20th when I asked why City Hall had told these people why it was okay to move into this facility, she acted like she didn't know. And then she said, well, I think it was affiliated with a church. And I informed her it wasn't. She said, well, they're not going to be there very long. They're going to move out in October. I said, what difference does that make? There's nothing in our code that says something can come in temporarily, at least a private business. She said, I asked her what authority she had to authorize it. She replied, she did not reply to it. She said she'd had to talk to the city attorney. And I asked her to call me back with the results. She did not. I waited, called several times, and then sent emails to the city manager and the building inspector to follow up on this illegal operation. I went to City Hall inquiring about a business license, none. I asked for the name of the person that required the electricity to be turned on and what name it was under. The clerk replied, we'll have to call you back with that, but she didn't. This is how the City Hall is being run. And, you know, when you can't fight City Hall, it must have lived in Hannibal. On July 1st, I called the city attorney requesting a clarification and a callback. Never even got one, even though I called him several times. On July 7th, I again requested a return call from the city manager, city attorney, and building inspector. None returned my call. On July 8th, I sent letters to the city manager, the mayor, the building inspector, and the 6th Ward alderman, and did not receive any replies. On July 9th, I contacted my ward councilman, Jeff Beach, informing him of the violation, and he replied he would look into it. He also replied that he, instead of I, should handle the matter and would get back to me. After no return call and several calls later, I gave up. On August 9th, I discussed that operation with Greg Sutton, who was either an owner or possibly administrator of the building. Notice I didn't say church, it just looks like one. It's just a building. Looks like a church. On August 15th, I was told that it was supposed to be a nonprofit. What difference does that make? We have nothing in our codes or our zoning that addresses nonprofits. It's a business. Nothing in there. I requested from the building inspector office to name the entity, and the clerk replied she would look it up and call me. I then received a call from Mike Murphy stating that nonprofits were licensed by the state and weren't required to be licensed by Hannibal. What difference does that make? We're maybe one of the few entities in the state that doesn't require business licenses from everyone. Everywhere I've ever lived has required a business license, regardless of their status. Why aren't they licensed? Why don't they fall under the rules of the city of Hannibal? They don't, and that seems to be, no one can answer that, by the way. They just say, well, they're licensed by the state. That's supposed to be the catch-all. And I don't understand that. I then received a call from Mike Murphy, and he stated that he was going by that living water was on some registry. I failed to catch what registry that was, but that it was Living Water Church was supposed to be in there. Left, I think, 4 years ago. But they were still carried on this form. And I asked him, I said, that's not true. I said, have you ever went by there and checked it out? No. He's a building inspector. Why hasn't he? And according to the code, if he's a business in there, he's supposed to inspect it. I then called back and asked him to go by the building and just ask him. But he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I also informed him that I could give him the numbers of both Living Water and Light Ministries, the last two churches that's been in there. They're available. I found them on the internet. It's easy to find. But I couldn't get it. I have not received a reply from anyone. And now I want to look at some of the documents. I just wanted to point out, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but I think it should become knowledge for everybody, that the mayor is the legal head of government in the city of Hannibal and presides over all meetings and the city council. You're the sole individual authorized to sign contracts, et cetera, et cetera. The city manager reports directly to the mayor and city council and serves as the chief administrative office. She is the office of the city manager, according to the material found on the internet by the city of Hannibal, which is posted there, that the city manager office responds to residential, business, and employee concerns. It also promotes community relations. I can't see how that works in this case. I'm going to skip over some of this stuff, and I hope you'll bear with me. But on rezoning proposals, which you plan to do, and include this business, I think, is that the owners of the properties within 185 feet of the site proposed is supposed to be sent letters by the city informing them. And I think that's for an individual one. And excuse me for jumping around just a little bit. I'll get through it as fast as I can. The zoning administrative offices duties, the building inspector shall enforce the zoning code. I asked him several times to do just that, and he refused to even go out and ask them what they were doing, who it was, what they were doing. I asked him who it was. He had no idea. All he knew was who he'd issued the electrical permit to, not the owners of the business. I then contacted the building. I said, who's it under? They had no idea. The building office, they had no idea who was in there. They had no idea. Only the brief thing that he said somewhere on some line that says living water was still in there 4 years ago. The city building inspector performs building code inspections of structures, facilities, and various civil services, plumbing, electrical, to ensure safety and code compliance. His replied he's not done that. This is a business license application. That was never completed. I then started looking at our zoning laws, and I'm going to quote some of the zoning laws and their uses. Under paragraph 32 of the Code of Ordinances, the only exception that I found in here on a 1 to 2 family board is churches. This is not a church. Never, has not been for 2 years. Under 32.2, no shall any building or land be used for any purpose other than permitted in the zoning district as part of the zoning code. Rezoning process, this was on the internet under the Hannibal regulations. I don't know whether it pertains to this or not, but it has a direction that it'll go. It refers to a 15-day public hearing notice. I think that's been given, but that was given before the city council approved that zoning. If you remember on your last meeting, you approved the zoning code to consider that. A notice was in the Hannibal Courier Post prior to that date, before you did that. I think that's kind of putting the cart before the horse. Under use regulations, again under Article 32, it specifies what can be in a 1 to 2 family zone. I have letters that I've sent to the city manager, and at this time I'm going to go through some more, but I want to invoke the Sunshine Law, the right to receive all records involved in the city pertaining to this situation. all correspondence that's been in this situation, and it's full disclosure law, you're all aware of it, that everything within the city has been done on behalf of this property and on behalf of the principals that's involved in that building. I have hearsay that who those people are. I'm not going to identify them because I can't positively do that, but I know who they are, and you do too.
Okay, with that, Mr. Markley, we're 13 minutes in.
Okay.
There are other things.
I could go on and on, but it would basically repeat what I've already said.
I understand.
But under the full
Mr.
disclosure
Lemon?
law, I want to know about it.
Well, and there is process, obviously, for you to receive any and all documents, and
I'm asking you
we're
to
very
do that
transport-
without me going through the courts.
Mr. Markley, you don't have to go.
Yeah.
You want to make a sunshine report properly done. I think you know that you writing to the custodian records. Clerk, tell her what you're looking for. Look at it. If she has any questions, she will contact you. If there's a copy fee, she will contact you before she starts making it to make sure that it's okay.
Can I ask the city clerk a question? Will all departments be approached with this subject? Will you send a notice to every department within the city saying, what have you done concerning this property and this operation?
If that is what your request is, that you want information from the police department, the fire department, the inspector's office, the clerk's office, the collector's office, that will get sent to all those departments requesting a response, and I will provide you with an estimate on the cost to proceed
Sure.
with the investigation. Documents.
Thank you for your consideration.
Mayor, you want me to address any of that?
If you would, there's a couple items that's.
Sure. You know,
I've got questions too.
Unfortunately, Mr. Markley has misconstrued both the facts and the law. However, I will agree with him that I think it's key whether this is a church or not. Basically, the sequence of events is a little different than the way he portrayed it. Mike Murphy was advised that this was a church. It's very clear that a daycare is within the ministry of a church, and if in fact there is a church there, it is appropriate for a daycare to be operated by a church. There's no question of that. Our ordinances have always allowed it. Case law allows it. After that was allowed, he was contacted by Mr. Markley, who advised him this was not a church. He investigated. He was advised, in fact, it was a church. We went back, we looked at it. Mr. Markley was advised that we believed it was a church. It was only at this point in time that he went back and claimed to have talked to them. Maybe he did, maybe he did not. I don't know. I was not there, and came back and said, well, they admitted to me that it's not a church. At that point, it was brought to the city manager, who came to me and asked me my legal opinion as to what was going on. I looked at it. I said, I agree with Mr. Markley. If this is not a church, we have a problem. So as a result, the city manager first attempted to contact the people at the building via letter, and then she followed up with, when we were advised what church it supposedly was, she followed up with a letter to that church.
If I may clarify one point, it still shows up in the county assessor's website as being owned as a church, so it is legally still owned as a church.
But the key issue, to Mr. Markley's point, the key issue is it a church, and is it operated within their mission? However, with all due respect to Mr. Markley, while we certainly appreciate the investigation that he's done, we can't rely upon his investigation. It would not be appropriate due process to the people who are operating this daycare. We were obligated to do our own investigation. I don't know if we've gotten a response back on that letter. I don't believe that we have. If we have not, at that point, we need to do further investigation, and we need to take a look at whether or not this operation needs to be shut down. Now, in regard to Mr. Markley's concerns about the fact that it doesn't have a business license, a couple of things. Under Missouri state law, we are very, very, very restricted in regards to who we can require to have a business license. And his position that everywhere he's ever been, everyone has always had to have a business license, then obviously that must have been outside the state of Missouri, because I can tell you for a fact
there are multiple businesses that you cannot require to have a business license. In fact, the state of Missouri recently passed a law that says, for instance, we can't require any home-based businesses to have a business license. There's all kinds of restrictions. The types of businesses that we can require to have a business license are specifically set out in our charter and ordinances, and that is who we require to have a business license. There is no requirement for a daycare to have a business license. Since it's not required under the ordinances, we cannot do that, so that's why there is no business license. Now, again, to Mr. Markley's point, we are investigating it. I do agree with him that if it's not a church, it is outside the appropriate nature in this zone, and we would have to take appropriate action. However, due process has to be given. We don't give instantaneous service. We don't instantly shut down businesses because a neighbor complains. We have to do a full investigation, and that's what's going on.
No, it's, you've had your time to speak. Okay, well.
On June 14th. On June 14th.
Oh, that's, okay.
Send her a letter.
Anything else?
That covers it. I agree with Mr. Markley's position that if this is not part of a church ministry, it is an improper use under that zoning, and we would need to take action with that business. However, as we all know, then there's a zoning violation. We don't go kick in doors, don't arrest people. We have to give them their due process. We have to give them notices. We have to make demands that they're shut down. If they don't do so, then we have to file court action and get them forcibly shut down. I'm in hopes that it won't come to that, but since we haven't received a response from this church, I'm starting to believe that, in fact, this is not part of a church's ministry, and in fact, we should go ahead and move forward on that action.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I reached out to the facility. They provided me a State of Missouri Department of Mental Health Division of Developmental Disabilities. It's a certificate to provide Medicaid waiver services and supports. It applies to individualized support living, shared living, day habitation. That was issued by the State of Missouri for Community Alternatives Missouri and Town and Country. I gave Mr. Markley a copy of that, along with I obtained the Division of Fire Safety at the state level does inspections on daycares. I also provided a copy of that. So they're operating under that type of license, and they have been inspected by the Division of Fire Safety.
I'm not going to reply to that. I'm not talking about that.
Is there any other council discussion?
There are other types of businesses that do not require a business license. Case in point, my own short-term rental does not require a business license. I don't know if there's any additional businesses that may or may not require licenses, but there are others that simply do not require a business license. I don't have the full list. List is there are other businesses that are not required to produce a business license.
Councilman, if I could, if you refer to ordinance 15-49, it specifically sets out the businesses requiring city licenses. If it's not found on that list, they're not required to have a license. 15-49, and I can give you that if you don't have a pen. I can email it to you.
I wasn't aware of that particular statute, but we cannot say that all businesses require a license because it's just simply not true.
Well, there are various ones that are exempted. There are some things like if you've got a statewide electrical license, for instance, we cannot require them to obtain a city license. There are all these exemptions. We are controlled by state law. We are a subdivision of the state of Missouri, and we can only require business licenses of the ones that are allowed under state law. And if you take a look at our ordinances and you compare it up with state law, I don't think you're going to find many loopholes. So, thank you for that.
Any other discussion? Next on the agenda is Corey Mahaffey, Hannibal Regional Economic Development Council.
Council, thank you all again for coming in earlier tonight for the public hearing. I greatly appreciate that. You should have before you an ordinance tonight for a first reading, finding that there's certain blighted area defined under Chapter 353 in the community through the redevelopment corporation law. Redevelopment of such property is necessary and in the public interest. The ordinance also approves the development plan for the area. It also approves a grant of a limited real estate property tax abatement. It also approves the development. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
No questions.
Thank you, sir.
Interesting. So that would be Bill 22-022 to follow.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you for your work in that. Okay, next on the agenda is Mr. Stephen Franke, Council Member of 3rd Ward.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I have 2 items tonight. I'll take them one at a time.
Mr. Mayor, can I interrupt for just a second? I'd like to bring to light that this is a previously tabled item, both of these. Nothing has changed since the time the council as a whole tabled these issues. There's currently pending impeachment hearings revolving around these issues. There's possible pending litigation, untrue allegations, and personal attacks from the councilman on city officials. I make a motion that we table these 2 items until a further time after those charges and possible hearings and litigation can be approved.
I'll second the motion.
I think it's important to note that the entire council does not table an item. Hopefully someday Hannibal will have a fair shot at transparency, accountability.
There's a motion, a second on the floor to table the 2 items by the Council Member Franke. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah, nay. Sorry, I really thought that it didn't go to.
Councilmember McCoy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson,
Yes.
Councilmember Franke,
No way, Jose.
Mayor Hark,
Yes.
Councilmembers Phillips,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
and Veach.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passed to table at this time. Next item on the agenda is Lisa Peck, City Manager.
Good evening. Before you this evening, I have the approval of an appointment for the Hannibal Board of Public Works of Robert Cohn for an appointment for an unexpired term to expire in July of 2020.
Is there a motion to approve the?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Items. Next item, Building Inspector Michael Murphy. Good evening, Mike. How are you?
This is again about
Stems from the public hearing that was held earlier this evening. Is there any questions by the council at this time of Mr. Murphy? It'll be Bill 22-024 to follow. Mike, thank you for your help. Next on the agenda is Bianca Quinn, HPD Management Assistant / Finance Director, and smiles. Good evening.
We're here for the purpose of fixing the 2022 ad valorem property tax rates for the city's general fund and fire retirement fund. The Marion and Rawls County assessors have provided notice of the 2022 aggregate assessed values to the city and the state auditor. The state auditor reviewed the submitted data and determined that the 2022 tax rate ceiling for the city's taxing entities will remain unchanged at $1.75 $1,778 per every $100 of assessed values for both real and personal property. Last year, that total was $249 million, roughly. This year, it comes in at $200 million. Rough estimate, $9 million on that. Due to the constraints as allowed for in Section 2.20 of the City Charter, an emergency reading to the ordinance is requested. This will allow the pro formas to be completed and sent to both Mayor and Charles County clerks by the end.
Ready to go upon approval. Okay. That will be Bill 22-021, emergency reading to follow. Are any questions of Bianca at this time? I guess not. Your next item.
The next item is about the fiscal year 22 audit services. In accordance with the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, as well as the state and federal entities, the city contracts to conduct an annual audit. In the spring of 2020, the city solicited requests of proposals, and the council via resolution 2280-20, a one-year engagement with Williams Keepers LLC out of with an option for 2 one-year renewals. The fiscal year 21 audit was the first of those renewals. Williams Keepers has submitted a letter of engagement for the second renewal option for fiscal year 22. Audit cost will be $53,500. That would be divided between the city entities at 60% and the Board of Public Works at 40%. Pending council approval, the field work is scheduled to begin September 22. We should receive draft copies by November and final copies of all reports by December. We've been very satisfied with the services provided by Williams Keepers in the past. We recommend that the council approve and authorize the mayor to execute the engagement letter for city's fiscal year 22 audit services.
Any questions of Bianca on this item? Okay. Resolution 2427-22 to follow. Bianca, thank you so much. Director of Central Services, Andy Dorian. Good evening, Andy.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Tonight, just got one item. It's the payroll amendment number 2. This would add a recreation supervisor position to the budget. Hopefully, I think at next council meeting, we're going to be having the contract to take over the Bear Creek Sports Complex. And so in doing that, we will need a recreation supervisor to oversee that very large operation, running all the leagues, tournaments, marketing, maintenance. This person will also now oversee the new hitting and pitching facility at Clemens, all the operations at Huckleberry Field, Clemens Field. There's a lot that's going on. And so this will be the first reading for that. If for some reason at the next meeting the council does not want to take Bear Creek over, then no reading on this next ordinance. We won't need a rec supervisor. So we don't want to hire a rec supervisor first before we take over the Bear Creek. So we'll do it concurrently. So I can answer any questions.
So this will be the addition of a person.
This will be additional. We have
Okay.
the recreation supervisor job description already in our job descriptions. This would just add the position. We didn't want to put this in the budget until we know we're taking over the sports complex.
I understand.
So,
Okay. Andy, where would they work out of?
they work out of City Hall downstairs, next to Candy.
Okay. Question.
Yes, sir.
As you explained, I kind of have to ask questions about something that happened yet in order to ask the question I want to ask. So we're hiring on a brand new position for the Parks Department, which is a relatively small department in terms of staff. What I'm getting at is that there's a cost of salary, and are we going to be getting any new revenues out of?
Yes. So kind of looking across the board, this will be the first year for the new hitting and pitching facility, which we expect during the peak of the season to be booked 7 days a week. So we'll be generating revenue there. In regards to the Bear Creek, they put on several very large tournaments a year. And so we'll be making money there from the concession stands and then from the league. I think last I heard there was like 400 or 500 kids running through that league. So it's a very big deal. It won't cover all our expenses because when you factor in capital costs, that, but it should cover a good portion of salary and maintenance.
Yeah. We're not in a business here trying to make a profit. But we can cover some of our expenses.
And part of that is this person I'll bring on, marketing will be part of what they're going to do. So soliciting business for signage and things like that, putting names on things. More money we can generate from there, the better.
So you say you'll have an advertising income as well?
Yes, okay. Yep.
And then would they also be responsible for like booking different events out there?
Yes,
different?
Yep. Oversee the maintenance that'll be going on there. Lots of different things. So, I mean, I'll be honest, years and years, 15 years ago, I started out as a rec supervisor here. So this person will also not just do that. I mean, it's all recreation that we do in the park system. So they'll be involved with disc golf and everything.
Okay, very good.
Any other questions for Andy? Okay, Andy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next on the agenda is the Fire Chief, Ryan Nyson. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to present the new collective bargaining agreement between the city and the IFF, Local 1211. The previous agreement was a 5-year agreement that expired June 30th of 2022. City manager, myself, Deputy Chief Reevesell, members of our union met several times throughout the spring and summer months, and were able to quickly come to a 5-year agreement that works for everybody. The two main financial items that would have an impact on the city, the holiday pay was raised from $5 to $100 per holiday. This hasn't changed since 2009. And then in Article 20, the station equipment, we raised the cost of the bill for all the stations from $1,600 to $2,000. I believe that doesn't actually cover the cost of the cable bill, but everything went well. I can't stress enough that to the union members and to the city manager and everybody that was involved, this was a very easy process for everyone. Everything, I think, turned out as well as it can. I think everybody's satisfied with it.
Questions for Chief Nyson? Be a resolution 2426-22. Chief, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Council, at this time, we have before us Resolution 2426-22. I need a motion to have the clerk give this read this resolution and call the roll for adoption.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Resolution number 2426-22, a resolution of the City of Hannibal authorizing the mayor to execute a 5-year collective bargaining agreement with the International Association of Firefighters, Local 1211, through June 30th, 2027. Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
Yes.
Councilmember Franke?
Yes.
Mayor Hark?
Yes.
Councilmembers Phillips?
Yes.
Welch?
Yes.
And Beach?
Yes.
Declare Resolution 2426-22 duly approved and adopted on this day. We now have Resolution 2427-22. I need a motion to have the clerk read this resolution and call the roll for adoption.
I'll move. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Resolution number 2427-22, resolution of the City of Hannibal approving a letter of engagement between the city and Williams Keepers, further authorizing the mayor to execute said document for city audit services, including the library and Board of Public Works, in the amount of $53,500, city entities $32,100, W $21,400 for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson.
Yes.
Councilmember Franke. Mayor Hark.
Yes.
Councilmembers Phillips.
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.
And Beach.
Yes.
I declare Resolution 2427-22 duly approved and adopted on this day. We now have before us Bill number 22-021. I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill an emergency reading.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Bill number 22-021, an ordinance of the City of Hannibal fixing and adopting the rate of taxation for the year of 2022 and levying taxes therefore. Emergency reading. Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
Yes.
Councilmember Franke? Mayor Hark?
Yes.
Councilmembers Phillips?
Yes.
Welch?
Yes.
And Beach.
Yes.
Declare Bill number 22-021 duly approved and adopted on this day. We now have Bill number 22-022. I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill a first reading.
So moved.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Bill number 22-022, an ordinance of the City of Hannibal finding that a certain blighted area as defined in Chapter 353 of the Revised Statutes of Missouri as amended, the Urban Redevelopment Corporation's law, exists in the City of Hannibal, and that the redevelopment of such area is necessary and in the public interest, approving a development plan for such area, approving a grant of limited real property tax abatement, approving a development agreement, and providing further authority. First reading.
Okay, next we have Bill number 22-023. I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill a first reading. Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Bill number 22-023, an ordinance of the City of Hannibal amending fiscal year 2022-2023 payroll ordinance number 2 relative to the addition of a recreation supervisor position. First reading.
We now have Bill number 22-024. I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill a first reading.
So moved.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Bill number 22-024, an ordinance of the City of Hannibal rezoning a tract of land being part of the southwest quarter of Section 13, Township 57 North, Range 5 west of the 5th Meridian in the City of Hannibal, Marion County, Missouri, from the B multiple family to PR Plan Density Residential Zoning District, and amending the city's zoning map accordingly. First reading.
Council, this time there's a motion going, or there's a request going to closed session in accordance with RSMO 610.021, paragraph 1, admitting myself, council, city manager, city attorney, and city and deputy city clerk. That will be it. Is there a motion to go? Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
Yes.
Councilmember Franke? Mayor Hark?
Yes.
Councilmembers Phillips?
Yes.
Welch?
Yes.
And Beach.
Okay, very good.